Welcome to Mastering Fundraising, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. Mastering fundraising endeavors to cover the most important fundraising topics with the goal of helping the audience reach their full potential as fundraisers. This podcast will share stories, tips, and guidance on the most important elements of fundraising. If you want to earn an advanced degree in fundraising, this is the podcast for you. Mastering Fundraising is a collaboration between Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership and the 5-Tool Fundraiser, two leaders in providing relevant and expert content to fundraisers and nonprofit leaders. Without further delay, let's jump into the current episode. Please join me in welcoming your host for today, Chris Looney.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mastering Fundraising, the podcast where we explore the strategies, mindsets, and real-world lessons that help fundraising professionals grow in their craft and lead with clarity and confidence. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Jamie Cappetta, Senior Vice President for Focus Catholic. Jamie's career path is both unique and instructive. After spending many years as the senior executive at campus ministry organizations, leading teams, shaping culture, and carrying the full weight of organizational leadership, he made a significant professional shift. He stepped out of the CEO seat and into development leadership, where he plays now a central role in advancing the mission of one of the most influential Catholic organizations in the country. This transition from executive leader to development leader is one that is rarely talked about, yet it raises important questions for anyone considering a similar move. It also helps us understand the skills executives carry with them into fundraising, the new competencies they must acquire, and the opportunities they discover when they're able to focus more deeply on donor relationships and mission advancement. Jamie, welcome to the show. I'm excited to dig into this with you.
Thank you, Chris. It's been I appreciate your friendship, and it's been a long time that we've known each other. So looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, as am I. And we've never really had the conversation about how you made that move, why you made that move, and what you've learned since you've been in the new seat. So it gives me a lot of joy to be able to have this conversation that also will be heard by so many people. And before we, though, talk about that transition into development leadership, can you share a bit with us about your own personal leadership journey and how you originally found your way into senior executive roles within campus ministry organizations?
Sure. I think it's been a blend of both fundraising and executive leadership positions. I think, honestly, it started back when I joined after college, decided discerning the priesthood and then discerned out of it, but still wanted to work for the church and decided that the way to do that is to get my hands and feet dirty and get in the mix. And so I started off actually as a youth minister in South Boston for 2 years as a full-time volunteer, and then went to Boston College High School as a campus minister before my first job as a campus minister at University of Massachusetts. So it's been a long time. That was 1997 that I was a full-time volunteer and been working for the church for almost 30 years now. So it's been a great run.
Yeah. Well, I know you now have a big family, so God must have told you that I want you to have a wife and a lot of kids and not be a priest. So bravo there. And you've been able to accomplish kind of the work in some ways of a priest being on campus and serving in that ministry. So that's awesome too.
Well, yeah, and it's very
What?
funny, being married, and obviously I couldn't do this without my wife, Christina. And we do have 7 children, but 6 of them are boys. And so just this whole, God has a very good sense of humor, and for Catholics, only, men are the priests. And so who knows, maybe one of my sons will end up being the priest and God's plan. So.
Yeah, well, by having 7 children, you certainly increase your chances of that being true. And we will see what God has in store for them. I know many of them are young still, so we'll try not to project anything on them
Exactly,
and let
exactly.
them
No, no pressure, no pressure.
let them discern for themselves as you did for yourself, right? But I certainly know these big families where there's big Catholic families where there always seems to be one of the kids that goes into the priesthood,
Yeah.
and I almost wish I came from a big Catholic family where I could have a brother in the priesthood and make fun of him, right?
Seriously, yeah. Don't tell my
Yeah.
children that though, because they're like, no, you don't want to come from a big family. We all argue and fight with each other all the time. So,
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. Being an only child, it's a totally different scenario for me. So, well, let's talk about some of the experiences you've had that shaped your understanding of leadership, stewardship, and mission-driven work. What were some of those, especially the ones maybe that happened earlier in your career?
yeah. So I think again, going back to family, my dad was in charge, board chair of the Catholic Charities way back when, and I remember that in terms of, and he took great pride in that. You know, he's an orthodontist, and so day to day he was working with people's teeth, but put great pride in his role as a servant leader for Catholic Charities and actually helping unwed mothers care for their children. They built a house I grew up in Boston area outside Boston. So in Lowell, Massachusetts, they built this home for unwed mothers who were expecting and just that kind of kicked off my servant leadership model from my mom and dad. Father Paul O'Brien, Harvard graduate. When I had my conversion, which really happened in college, but my senior year in high school, he was the priest in my parish, and I had a deal with God, and I was like, all right, God, I really want to get a scholarship to play baseball. And if I do get a scholarship to play baseball somewhere, I will explore this God thing. And so I went every single day to Mass, second semester, senior year. This is 1993. I'm 18 years old, and I would sit in the very last pew and then leave right after communion because Mass started at 7, class at 7:40, a half hour church time. And finally, one day, Father Paul catches me. He's like, "Why in the world do you come to Mass and sit in the last pew?" And, we struck up this amazing friendship. And he was a church leader for many years in the Archdiocese of Boston, helped me learn to pray, helped me learn how to lead people. We went to Honduras together, just he and I for a month to share the good news. So he was another influential part of my early life. And then I will say the first two bosses, so Father Sean at UMass Amherst, Sean McDonough, and then Father Bob Boulogne and Carrie Robinson at Yale University. And if any of you are in the Catholic space, you know Carrie Robinson's name. Her family's her family is a Raskob family, and helped write the first Fatica book, Foundations and Donors in Catholic Association. I forget the acronym, but she and Father Bob and Father Sean really helped me mentor me as a young leader in the church, as a layman, someone who puts Christ first in prayer, but also wants to help the mission succeed. So I feel like if I'm talking quickly, John Flynn, who now actually works for Focus, he's another one, been in fundraising for many years, gave me the courage to have thick skin. And I think in fundraising, we have to have thick skin to be able to, people say no a lot more than they say yes. So I'd say off the top of my head, those are some of the people in my life who've influenced me.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, all those years in executive leadership, what parts of the role brought you the most meaning and clarity about your purpose?
So a lot of my roles have been working with the teams. And so being able to see them succeed, being able to help them grow, hiring people who are passionate about the mission of it's a sales job, but it's a Christian sales job, and kind of my experience that you're selling Christ and helping young adults in particular, which is my focus, help young adults explore their own journey of faith. And so I feel like that was the most rewarding is helping the staff be able to fulfill what they feel called to do in their life. And actually, I've used a lot of tools throughout my time, but strengths finder, disc assessment, all those kind of things have been also fascinating to me because it actually helped my own journey. Ironically, when I did my strengths finder several times with my teams, um, it's interesting. I always thought that I was supposed to work on the areas that I don't have a lot of strengths. And actually, what I learned from the Strengths Finder was that you actually are meant to lean in on your gifts and surround yourself with the people that have gifts other than you. And so the gifts that I did not have, the strengths that I did not have, trying to surround myself with those people. My first strength is empathy. And the challenge with empathy is you don't want to have hard, difficult, challenging decisions. So I had to make sure I surrounded myself with people who could just tell me like it is and be honest with me. And so that kind of is an example of something that what I really appreciated in terms of working with teams and helping it grow.
Yeah, well, that's so wonderful. So self-reflective too. I love it. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the decision to transition out of executive leadership into development leadership. You eventually made the decision to step into development. What sparked that change for you?
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic to be honest, Chris. I think to be very frank, the leadership within the particular this last organization and I didn't see eye to eye on kind of where we were headed and kind of
Not uncommon.
what the focus was meant to be. And so a few years ago, I really brought it to prayer and I was like, all right, God, I'm sensing there was an incident that happened. And so after that incident, I was like, I had this kind of gut feeling like I just have to have a backup plan in case something goes south. And so I was like, all right, God, I'm going to put this in your hands. And literally 3 years, took 3 years to unfold, but eventually it happened. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And fortunately, I had an opportunity already kind of in the works because of that discernment, but that's kind of how it came about, and grateful that I've been able to make the change.
Yeah, that's great. And what was exciting about the opportunity and what felt uncertain or challenging?
Yeah, so the organization I'm with now, Fellowship of Catholic University Students, Focus, is a huge organization, and in my opinion, it's the fastest growing. It's the most effective Catholic organization working with the 18 to 25-year-old students, young adults. And so what it's exciting for me is I have UMass, Yale, and USC were all kind of one entity. And so being able to work with an organization that's countrywide and able
Mhm.
to have a region as opposed to just one particular donor base, so, Trojans, Bulldogs, or Patriots, right? So I feel like that was number one. Number two is we're heading into we're doing a feasibility study right now, but a potential $500 million campaign. The largest campaign the previous other positions was in the 25 to $35 million range. So having
Right.
something at 500 million, have not been a part of something like that. So that's exciting for kind of my own skill set and my own professional trajectory. What else? I also think the team that I'm working with. So as an executive director, president, you kind of wear multiple hats and are one day dealing with HR, one day finance, one day advancement, one day, picking up trash from the bathroom. But for me, this particular, which is not a bad thing, there's good and bad with that. But the flip side is now I'm able to literally focus on just my portfolio and praying for those
Mhm.
150 people and being able to just focus on the West Coast as opposed to wearing multiple hats and kind of being pulled in many directions. I can focus on this one mission. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can certainly see in your discernment, your prayer, what made this feel like the right next chapter in your career. Those are some compelling reasons. What skills from your executive life transferred naturally into development leadership?
It's a good question. I think trust building is number one. Being able to build trust with teammates, being able to build trust with my donors, being able to build trust with those who I report to. At the core of any good fundraiser is authentic trust. So I think that's one skill that an executive needs to have. I think building friendships. I think, like I said, authenticity. Writing and speaking too is something that I had to do. You have to do as an executive. And so being able to bring that skill set to my new job is important as I'm writing something as simple as a follow-up email, or I'm crafting something that, I want put in the appeal letter, or a particular proposal for a $10 million gift. So kind of I feel like those are some of the skills that can transfer nicely.
Yeah. And what about the skills that you had to build or sharpen once you were in this development focused role?
Yeah, it's funny. It is kind of like riding the bike again. I mean, I've obviously never got out of development fully, but I think sharpening the sword is something, so not being afraid to fail. I think kind of that daily, if not weekly, rejection of no, I'm not interested or not at this time. I think having to remember how to manage a portfolio, right? What is the moves what is the moves management of a 150 person portfolio look like? I haven't done that in
Right.
over a decade, right? So I think those are some of the skills that I've had to bring back my memory and get back on the bike and start pedaling, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, how did your perspective on donors and philanthropy shift as you moved from CEO to this senior development role?
Honestly, I feel like they haven't. I've been fortunate. So the people in my life, when I first thought about fundraising, so as a campus minister, John Flynn started a consulting company and we hired them. And so John Flynn asked me as a campus minister, would you ever want to get into fundraising? And literally, I was like, I started to laugh and I was like, fundraisers are awful people and I don't like asking people for money. And so, he's a very persistent man, and he said a no is just a slow yes. And so over time, he rubbed off on me. And one of the things that he and Kerry Robinson in particular have taught me about donors is it's not about transaction. It's about authentic friendship and inviting the mission of the organization to be in alignment with the passions of those donors and bringing them together. And so not using them, but appreciating their gifts, bringing what the Catholics, I mean, what the organization offers, and seeing if there's a match. And honestly, if there's not, both John and Carrie have, I remember, would tell donors like, look, this is not the right fit for you. I think a different organization is a better fit. So I feel like the reason I say all that is just my thought as an executive director or fundraiser, like haven't shifted from 20 years ago when kind of that was instilled in my memory as a young fundraiser.
Yeah, no, it's great. But you have to admit, many executives believe they understand development as a professional development officer would, because they've always been tied to revenue. And that's
Sure.
fair. And some have had varying degrees of exposure to fundraising. Some fundraisers have become CEOs very
Right.
naturally, right? But what maybe do you feel are the biggest misconceptions executives carry into fundraising?
I would say the number one misconception is timeline. That when as an executive and as the executive reports to a board, there is a tension there naturally to be successful, to be fruitful, both on the ministry side with metrics and also on the fundraising side with metrics. And so recognizing that people are not widgets. And so the timeline that it takes to build trust and to not just get a transactional gift. If you're talking about a transformational gift, you're talking multiple years. You're talking it's a huge investment on the executive director's time in that person and in that person's budget and team, et cetera, to make the major gifts happen because transformational gifts don't happen immediately. And then if you're talking about planned gifts, right, you're talking 5, 10 plus years if you're having conversations about planned gifts. And so that'd be my number one thing that I think executives don't understand. And then I'm just experiencing this now. I think my boss is incredibly patient. And very persistent, which is fantastic. And I think I'm trying to just share with him that in order to build a region, it is going to take time, and he really appreciates that. Because if he was like looking at his watch and kind of like, hey, it's been 6 months, where are the seven-figure gifts? Like I don't know if I could kind of stay in that space. But he's been very patient and very willing to work with me and say it's not a straight line. When you think like this is the region you got to focus in. So for example, San Francisco, like huge capacity, right? But I'm experiencing it's much more difficult to find the donors who are aligned with focus kind of mission as like Orange County, which is a surprise for me. So like those kind of learnings only happen through lived experience and being patient in the timeline. So those are a couple things.
That's right. No, I love it. That's so heartening to hear. And I know development professionals, fundraisers that are hearing this are screaming with joy because, I think there's this recognition that the timelines are long. Um, the struggle is real, that it takes time to build those relationships authentically, to arrive at that very mutually beneficial decision to give a big gift.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's nice to hear that from your perspective. Maybe what surprised you most about the day-to-day work of fundraising?
What I haven't done in a while is the day-to-day grind of email, text, follow up with my portfolio and trying at the same time to find new people. So it's a puzzle, right? And as I'm putting this puzzle piece over here with, okay, this person's going to host a nice small house gathering, and this is happening right now in Alamo, and like I can turn my attention to that and who are we going to invite and how's that going to work, but not forgetting about, oh, I have an actual event that's happening, next Wednesday in the desert, while also saying, okay, who on this particular roster, like at a Catholic school, might be interested in Focus who hasn't ever heard of Focus. So you're dealing with all three different criteria. Like
Yeah.
new people have never heard about you, the people that are, excited to be engaged but haven't yet, and then you're actually doing an event or have to be at an offsite. Or this past weekend, I was in Santa Barbara for a conference. So just kind of I'm not used to the being pulled in so many directions when it comes to the fundraising day to day.
Super. That's a really great reflection. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Um, Well, let's talk about sort of identity, which is important for a lot of leaders. You stepping out of that CEO role can feel like a shift in identity. How did you navigate that transition personally and professionally?
Yeah, thank you. That's an important question that so pride is a very powerful emotion, right? And so for
Yeah.
me, when my identity is with a particular title, a particular prestigious organization, and that gets, that changes, it for me it took some soul searching. And so I think pride has been a big part of overcoming some of that ego. I mean, it's all driven by my own selfishness, right? And we're broken people with wounds, and those wounds come up because, especially for men, realizing, for me as a man, that my outside, how I relate to the outside, is so professionally driven. It's like I take pride in how people see me, and then when that gets taken away, or a surprise happens, like that is something I have to grapple with, and probably God just being like, "Hey, I'm gonna refine the sword here. Like you just gotta keep trusting,
Hmm.
gotta keep trusting in me." And I think also what I've learned too is that there's these kind of emotional peaks and valleys that some days feeling good about myself and my work and feel blessed, and other days when I'm getting a lot of no's or getting a lot of no responses. When you fart, I start to take it on myself and feel like, and I can't, I can't own that negative emotion. It's just like that's people are people, and you just got to keep pushing and have activity, and the numbers will bear fruit eventually, but it's going to take time. So I think those are some emotions that I've been kind of having to work through.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose there's also managing the feelings of other people toward the decision as well. I can remember through my years coming through the consulting world and going up through the leadership ranks of that organization, there were many times where I would be tempted or excited about a potential opportunity, going in-house as a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And depending on who you talk to, and especially if you're talking to some executive search or headhunters, they would make it sound like the decision to leave was the best decision, or the decision to stay was the best decision, or the worst decision. And so I was often confronted with the perspectives of other people
Mm.
who didn't know me and
Right.
often didn't care about me. And I just had to remind myself that this was about what was best for me and what I wanted to get out of my, career and the professional work I was doing. And no one but me kind of understood that as well as I did.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And alongside my wife and I think us grappling with that exact question is hard, and reality is, sometimes for me, like being able to uh, not look backwards. Like it's easy to rear view and second guess, but that's not helpful. That has not been helpful for me in my career trajectory. Yeah, I made the just made it make a decision and move forward and trust that God's going to be a part of it.
Love it. That's great. I love that perspective. How do you lead differently now that your primary focus is donor relationships rather than organizational oversight?
Yeah, I think my leadership style is the same in terms of my gifts, but I think it's more granular. It's taking that authentic friendship kind of trust building to an individual person. And let's say out of 150, let's be honest, 20 to 25 of those could make and can make a transformational gift. So 75, 80% of my time is on that small group of folks. And so how do I pray for them? How do I think about them? How do I connect with them? In particular, most importantly, when I'm not asking them for money, like that particular the time frame in which I'm not asking for money, but want to get to know them better, want to get them to understand the organization, but also get to know me better. All of that is kind of a transferable skill, but it's different because you're not thinking about the organization as the whole. Because I'm Curtis Martin, the founder, and Craig Miller and the team are doing all that. I'm just talking about building my business in California out here on the West Coast with my colleague Hunter in San Diego. So that's kind of my day-to-day focus.
Yeah, of course. Makes total sense. All right, well, let's move into some lessons for fundraisers and executives considering a similar path. I mean, what advice would you offer any executives who are curious about moving into development?
Yeah, I think ma- I don't know many executives these days who don't do fundraising. So I think most are comfortable in the fundraising space. I think the question that one would have to ask him or herself is this something I want to do on a day-to-day basis? When I get out of bed, I'm thinking about my portfolio. I'm thinking about uh, being rejected, but also be having the courage to ask and to ask and to ask. I mean, fortunately, I'm on a team now that, we have a huge amount of metrics. So, but what's weighted the most is activity and not money raised, right? And so being able to have as your guiding post activity, is that something you want to do day to day? Is something that I think number one, the executive would have to ask him or herself. Um, what else would I say? I think I missed my teams, to be honest. So, I mean, I hired at USC, I hired most of the folks that I left. Wonderful, passionate people who care about the church, who care about young adults, and not, and I'm in California, and the team's in Denver and all over the country. So we see each other maybe 4 times a year in person. So I have to psychologically just prepare myself to be grounded via Zoom with my peers on my team, and then not be kind of anxious to kind of get fed emotionally, spiritually, professionally from people around me physically. Like I just can't. That if I was expecting that, it's not going to happen in this particular job. So recognizing you don't have that team interaction in the same way you do in the office. So those are kind of two off the top of my head. I'm happy to think about others, but.
Yeah, no, I'm sure some things might emerge. Uh, how can organizations better support leaders who make this kind of transition?
I think we talked about earlier, touched on it, but patience and metrics. I think I, on the one hand, being an executive of fundraisers, I think I remember and being a part of that for many years, like their metrics are important, but also kind of the situation and being patient with is if when I saw them working hard, making phone calls, making visits, I wasn't as concerned about the particular other people who were move to the side the fundraising part and wanted to kind of be in organizational leadership. And it's easy for a fundraiser who needs to understand the mission to want to kind of get into that administrative space and help craft the vision and mission and values, but that's not what
Right.
you were hired to do. And so I feel like the executive director recognizing the need for metrics and accountability, but also patience in understanding the situation, understanding the markets that they're in, the fundraising markets, the nonprofit space. I mean, we're fortunate, for example, in California, that it ends up not just Catholic, but religious, Christian. Like, I know the outside world sees California um, as this bastion of sin, but honestly, there's a lot of believers in California who want to see the Christian church grow and different faiths grow. And so I feel like we're fortunate to be able to be a part of that. So those are a couple of things in terms of keeping in mind for executive directors.
Yeah, that's good. Well, last question. If you could teach one principle about this transition, sort of to the sector as a whole, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to fail.
Good.
If activity is your mantra and your boldness and you're not afraid to ask, I feel like that is going to breed success. So not being afraid to fail. Don't be shy. Be bold. Don't hold back on your asks for donors. So if you have activity and you're bold, you're going to fail, and not taking it personally, but recognizing that it's through the no's, as John Flynn and others have shared with me, it's through the no's that you find your yeses. And so being able to be persistent, being able to have courage, and if you believe in what you're selling, which I do, which is our Catholic faith, then not only God will guide you, but your activity will help you be successful in fundraising.
Well said. Well said. Well, Jamie, thank you for sharing your story and your insight. Your journey seriously offers a rare and valuable perspective on what it means to move from executive leadership into development leadership and the opportunities that can open up when leaders follow where their skills and passions are calling them. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Mastering Fundraising. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like and subscribe and share it with your colleagues and friends. And while you're here, be sure to check out our other two shows, Lead for Good and The Nonprofit Edge, where we continue to explore leadership, philanthropy, and the work that strengthens our sector. We look forward to having you with us again next time, and see you all soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for joining this episode of Mastering Fundraising. We hope the conversation was helpful and invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast for more conversations with extraordinary nonprofit and fundraising leaders. To learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership, please visit us on the web at fulcrumleader.com. To learn more about the 5-Tool Fundraiser, please visit us at 5toolfundraiser.com. We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts and ideas with us at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Thank you for the important work you do to make our world stronger. We look forward to welcoming you back during a future podcast. In the meantime, take care and be well.